So then we are back with the modern understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We understand then first the tabernacling. It is very important, the viewpoint of the Creator regarding tabernacling. As it is, Israel is not yet tabernacling, and then they are not relevant. Israel is not relevant as far as the plan of creation thus far. Yeshayahu the prophet has stated in the 61st chapter, where then he said, and the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries would return. So then, very wisely we find in a layer of understanding of tabernacling, and here is the other layer of understanding from the time of Daniel. We understand also comes then the Chinese system very shortly, 36 months, and then we find ourselves then preparing for the system of Gentile level, where then the area of the seat then is gone, and then we've entered the time of the dragon. That's why the Chinese system, the Chinese dragon then is coming. That's where the link is from. So then we understand then the nations are preparing themselves, and as far as we can understand, the entire continent of Africa is then the kingdom of the south, because its tremendous riches is going to be extremely important in the extraction of those minerals. And we already know then Xi Jinping from China already visited Africa, and he wants more energy and minerals. So we understand the system is coming from the east via the Pacific, and then is encircling us. So then what can we do to become part of this deal? We have to tax. There is no other option. And there are more movements around the world. We understand the latest news from Australia, they are going to remove the entire military from Afghanistan. At least the soldiers are coming home at the end of the year. The base is closing. So then we can't expect much from Mr. Bernanke if he does not have tax deductions. We are asking then for a miracle from a person that's not related with miracles. He's a human being, and he understands there is a relation with the generation of more money and production of the country, and then the tax deductions. He can't come up with a miracle. So then as the system presents itself, it then comes from the east through the Pacific, and then it's coming through where then we find then Australia with a very nice realm, then going through the changes of their government. Roughly 20 people were already replaced. New Zealand then is already also updating their logs, because they have the first-hand relationship with the Pacific. We don't have this relationship with the Pacific as they have. We are so entangled with Israel, so involved with those crazy people over there, and they are not tabernacling. So we are then cashing our future, linking up with a nation that there is no relation with the Creator whatsoever. Some people, they think, oh, because God, He created Israel. As long as there was tabernacling over there, yes, He did. No tabernacling, it's a cursed piece of land like any other. But then we were born during the time of deceit, where we were taught, oh, the nation of Israel, God's nation. No, it's not God's nation. What makes God's nation is tabernacling. And where is tabernacling? Nowhere to be found. Because the first tabernacling is found in the land of Cush. So then very smartly, then those realms of the Pacific, they are already lining up themselves for this system, and then when it comes, shortly 36 months, we in America are going to be caught unawares. Though it's becoming more familiar what's coming from the East, but we are not updating our system yet to deduct the taxes. People can expect miracles from Mr. Bernanke. If he does not have a computer over there at his disposal with the taxes coming through so he can manage then what he prints out as money versus what is valuable as far as his production is concerned, then we can expect. So then the objective of the government is making a deal with the freighters. They have to have a reunion with the freighters of the U.S., such as UPS, FedEx, and then the sea shipment companies. They have to sit down and come up with a plan. Every time there is a label printed, taxes must be deducted. Whosoever is dealing with the shipment, as far as it's coming to our country, or any value thereof, must be taxed. That's why we find then Daniel the trader, Daniel the prophet, related with tabernacling, but primarily related as a politician. And he taught the way of doing this. And the Messiah said, give to the government, belongs to the government. Every time there is trade, tax must be deducted. Because when the system comes, they won't have any time. People are going to download the system in their computers. Whatsoever they have then as funding, they're going to transfer into the system, and then banks, no more savings. It's going to be a shocking, you get up in the morning the next day, and where is the savings? Where did it go? Gone. And it is property of China because it is property of their government. You can make a deal with them, you can invest, but you can play with it. It is a total legal system. And then how are we going to manage the situation then, because they are going so far as making a deal with banks where the privacy of the people are respected. If the government is not maintaining taxes from either movement of funding or then parcels, they won't be able to make a move in the future, because they have to go to court to fight the privacy rights of those individuals. Rendering the government inactive. And then you find retailers out of work. You find then customs extremely overwhelmed. You find then ships coming at the harbor. They can discharge their ships because there is no space in a port. People are going to be purchasing from online, from overseas. You're not going anymore over there around the corner to get your pair of pants. Costs you 20, you can get them from the system for 10. In many cases, you pay no freight. So they begin to understand the danger of having the system as far as when a nation is caught not charging taxes. If the nation is charging taxes, then it's covered. Then they can't yet activate themselves and get the system leaned up, and then they can balance production versus what they spend. But if they have no taxes, what are they going to do in the Ozarks? They're going underground, and who's going to take care of the farms? Not only this, but then people are going to be so angry with the government, they're going to throw dynamite on the top of the mountains. Don't think those nice roads over there for thousands of miles underground are going to be intact. Oh no, you can be sure they won't. People are going to blast that place out of space. So the government can't go underground. People already know where it's at. Must start charging taxes. The first objective on the agenda is having then a reunion with the ship companies. The freighters must be then, the transporters must be invited for the reunion, so then they can come up with a plan. Every time there is a label printed, there is a description, there is a price, tax deducted instantly. So then Mr. Bernanke can start having a computer over there with numbers coming up so he can manage the expenses. Otherwise, he's not a miracle worker. Sometimes you find a picture of himself in the newspaper kind of a downcast because there is absolutely nothing he can do. A normal fact of a normal government, if you do not have the precise exact taxes coming in every time there is a purchase or the movement of funding, then what can he do other than give the order of printing out more money? He has to make up for the deficit, but then goes so far. And then we find then the scoundrel of the vice president going to Paris and he stays in a 5-star hotel. Have you watched the latest news? Rather than staying in a modest hotel because we are in crisis, any kind of abuse of the system when the time of crisis is regarded as criminal. Then these damn scoundrels going around the world to stay in the best hotels where the nation is then in crisis and they don't give a damn. The other situation, the NRA, for instance, they are an army auxiliary. Do we understand what it means, army auxiliary? They are a club of men and ladies that they do have the understanding of how bear arms. So when then the time of, for instance, draft, if the case comes, then those people, they are in line. So the army, rather than going and trying to find scoundrels that never had then a gun before, drug addicts, trying to go into the army, then they can go to the NRA and find out, do you have a list of those people with license of guns? So then it would be easier for training. Army auxiliary. They got nothing to do with the crime. And then you find senators speaking bad of NRA, and then people try to blame them because of gun. That's the whole purpose. Is to pre-train men before they join the service. Our nation is crazy. That's what we can deduct from the situation is they are crazy. Such a lack of an objective. Come on, we have to have a visit with the freighters and then verify what can be done as far as printing of labels because they have the best tracking there is. But then we find president going to Israel for no reason. They are not tabernacling over there anymore. They haven't done for more than 1,000 years. That's the time of deceit. We were born during the time of deceit and the whole tradition of going over there for what reason? They are not tabernacling. We got ourselves ruined because of them. And then we go and pick a fight with Iran. Oh, what a nice friend we have over there, huh? And the objective is quite simple. It's not complicated. Visiting with the freighters and find out what they can do as far as every time there is a label printed and they can deduct taxes from. It can't be anymore via companies because there are so many areas where they can avoid paying taxes. Must be every time there is a label printed. And obviously there are categories of what kind of item is then being sent or freighted. But when there is a relation with the companies versus individuals, those must be taxed. When it's coming from companies, there is a specific ship label or then freight label generated from a company. Those must be registered with the U.S. government. Then when they print out a label, it's because it's going out as a trade, they must be taxed. Instantly, absolutely instantly, must go through the internet and ended up at Mr. Bernanke's computer. Any other way of doing is insanity, because then we are negating the very basic factors of expenses and budget. Thus far, our government is crazy. There is no other word to use. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Let's wait for the next developments, because at least in the Pacific they are lining up themselves very nicely. You find then New Zealand already updating their system, making sure their system is lining up with their already subsystem, because they are already having this subsystem lined up so that they can manage their expenses, because when the system then comes, they invest and they understand how much they're going to earn so they can control their expenses. So they are already designing their subsystem in a fashion where then when the expenses come, then they can make sure they are paid, but at the same time when they invest, then they can balance the budget. We don't have any of it. And then expecting miracles from a person that only understands, print out more money. Our politicians are crazy.